to. Maybe there's something very unique about your concept. You need to speak from an added value standpoint. What about the location? What about the trends that are taking place in the business arena relative to your area of concentration, your area of expertise? Can you tell something about the trends? Is that going to make that selection committee person that's reviewing your proposal take another look and say, oh, okay, this is aligned with the trend of emerging technologies, if you will, or whatever that may be. So this is a 3-page executive summary that now is a part of your proposal. I would encourage you to take full advantage of it and speak to your concept to its fullest. I talked about first things first, so let's back up and look at this. This is what the description speaks. Now, we purposely wanted to put this up here because guess what? There's a lot of reading there, right? But what we want you to really do is take note of the fact that the proposed concept is a news books cafe. This is just a sample, square footage and term, if you will. Here's what you need to get out of this, though. First things first, you need to take and sit down with your team, and you need to break this. This is really what that's saying. So at the end of the day, this store should feature and or provide, if you're sitting down with your team and you've taken that description, we're descripting it, but it should provide New York Times weekly bestsellers, varied assortment of books and hardbacks and paperbacks, innovative current and emerging technology, so forth, so on. A coffee bar that should be easily accessible to customers not shopping and should serve a minimum of 3 different fresh brewed gourmet coffees. It's the details, it's the devil in the details that you got to grasp. Here's something that's very important. This says a location is at the entrance to the Skylink train station. Well, there's something in that language. That means that this is almost like a main location. So this means that if, in fact, we're looking to really augment the character and the class of that main location, okay, that we don't have today, if we're going to put something there that's going to be a wow factor to people, well, if you're bidding on that particular location, then you got to take note to that particular sentence. Because what that's going to do, as that selection committee is looking at it, they're going to be weighing all of this information that's relative to that description. Is everyone with me on the same page? Okay. Some are asleep. Am I talking too slow or what? Okay. Just trying to be certain. Decor that should reflect a destination bookstore and coffee lounge. Okay. That says something. So look at your decor. Look at what you're speaking to, because you've got 5 persons that are in the selection committee that are sitting down looking at your information. Did you tell your story? That's one of the things we found over and over and over again. If I may back up. Well, there it is. If I may back up. This has a lot of information. Tear it down and get inside of this package. Understand exactly what you're trying to convey. Now, if there are no questions, then I'm going to bring back up Suzanne Cruz Sewell, that's going to talk about the ACDBE participation. Thank you.
I've got to work on this agenda lineup because it's just so hard following the great energy of Michael Baldwin. How about another round of applause for Michael? Okay, so I'm going to start off my presentation. How many of you have downloaded the RFP, picked up the RFP and read it? Okay. Here's your pop quiz. Remember when you'd get to class and the teacher would say, oh, we're going to have a pop quiz? Okay, so raise your hand if you can tell me what ACDBE stands for? Right here in the front row. Okay, close enough. So I've got gifts for you. We have more prizes. So raise your hand if you can tell me what MWBE stands for right here. Okay, excellent. Felix, can you come up here and help me pass these out? And these gifts have other gifts inside, so thank you. So ACDBE, just so that you know while I'm talking about what I'm talking about, ACDBE, Airport Concessions, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. MWBE is Minority Woman-Owned Business Enterprise. How many ACDBEs do we have in the house? Come on, raise your hand, be proud, because the person next to you may be your next partner, okay? MWBE, how many MWBEs do we have in the house? These are the groups you need to be looking at to partner with for your subcontracting goal. Okay, since all of y'all have picked up the RFP and read it, ACDBE participation, you can receive up to how many points? Raise your hand right here in the next to the door. 10 points. MWBE participation, up to how many points can you receive? 5 points. Very good. Right here in the second row. Okay, so these two categories, a valuable consideration in the awarding of the concession agreements for terminals B and E. Please remember that when you're responding in this proposal to this section, there are two components, ACDBE and MWBE, and I will repeat this several times. When we did Terminal A, a third of the proposers completely left off the MWBE section, did not address the MWBE section. That's an automatic loss of 5 points. So, two sections, ACDBE and MWBE, up to 10 points that you will receive, you can receive for ACDBE participation, and up to 5 points MWBE participation. And thank you, Michael Spears, for these wonderful graphics. Up to 15 points for the ACDBE and MWBE section. So let's talk a little bit about the ACDBE program. The ACDBE program is required for DFW Airport because we receive federal funds from FAA. This program was established in 2005, and since then, FAA has slowly been releasing guidance to the airports in terms of interpretation and implementation. The ACDBE program addresses goal setting. We talked earlier about the FY 2012-2014 overall ACDBE goals that we're required to set. I also mentioned that the goals that are specific to this concession RFP are just that, concession specific. So we have two different types of goals. This program also addresses the personal net worth that an ACDBE must not exceed. Also the business size standards, which are determined according to industry areas. And then, as I mentioned in my earlier presentation, the counting of ACDBE participation in our car rental lease agreements. This has been in effect for some time now, and DFW was one of the fortunate primary airports to undergo an FAA audit earlier this year from FAA. And basically what FAA was looking for was that our joint venture agreements were in compliance with the guidance. So as a result of that, we got that completed. We did well. But the joint venture agreements for the Terminal A were reviewed, and reviewed just to ensure that we are in complying with all the guidance and all the regulations. ACDBE, I won't go into too much detail. 51% of a small business, owned by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. In the case of a corporation, 51% of the corporation needs to be owned, managed, and operated by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. So for the concessions RFP for Terminal B and E, the ACDBE aspirational goal for equity ownership participation is 35%. What that means is that all proposers must make a good faith effort to bring to the table 35% ACDBE participation. This includes ACDBEs who are also proposing as primes. What I want to clarify is that certified ACDBEs, while you must still demonstrate good faith efforts to meet the 35% ACDBE goal, your self-performance as an ACDBE will count towards the 35% goal. This does not mean your self-performance gets all 10 points. Just because you're an ACDBE does not get you all 10 points. You're still required to make a good faith effort to meet this 35% ACDBE goal. And I'll go into that a little further. I just want to clarify that your self-performance does count towards meeting the 35% ACDBE goal. It does not get you the maximum 10 points. So that said, ACDBE participation, what it looks like generally, joint ventures, teaming arrangements, some type of corporate ownership, partnerships, sublease arrangements, various forms of obtaining ACDBE participation. If you're a non-MWBE who chooses to bring a joint venture to meet your ACDBE goal. A joint venture, what we're going to look for, as I mentioned, we reviewed all the joint venture agreements extensively. We're looking at 5 key areas: that the ACDBE is responsible for a distinct, clearly defined portion of the work, that you share in the capital contribution, control, management risks, and profits of the joint venture. Those 4 areas need to be commensurate with the ownership interest. So at the end of the day, when we're reviewing these joint venture agreements, we look at the overall operations, the management, the distribution of profits and losses, and there's a sort of a formula, for lack of a better word, or a chart, a table that we follow that FAA has given us as guidance to come up with, yes, more or less, if you committed to 20%, yes, the ACDBE is achieving 20%, or 35%, or 40%. It varies with each package, and it varies, the roles and responsibilities vary, the structure of the business organization varies. There is no cookie cutter process or template for saying if you do 35%, this is what the ACDBE participation is going to look like. It varies from package to package. In your proposal, there are 2 documents that must be included. Exhibit F is applicable to joint ventures only or teaming arrangements. If you're 100% ACDBE that's self-performing and you're proposing to self-perform, you don't need to fill out this document. Just exit out and put not applicable. But this is where you give us detailed information about your joint venture or your partnership. It's very important that your proposal also include a draft joint venture agreement. And if you go to our BDD website under our ACDBE program, we have templates and samples of joint venture agreements. The reason behind including the draft